All right, good morning, Housing Authority Board of Directors, and over to you, Director Harrington.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, October 4th, 2022 Washington County Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting. Clerk Moss.
Thank you, Director Harrington. The Washington County Board of Commissioners is now meeting as Washington County Board of Directors for the Housing Authority for this meeting. Director Savara.
Here.
Director Roper. We see you there, Director Roper. Director Willie.
Here.
Director Treese.
Here.
Director Rogers.
Here.
Director Fye.
Here.
Director Harrington.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Moss. Just so that everyone knows, we have an updated agenda packet, and very simply put, action item 1, we just have a revised resolution and order. The intent is the same, though. So,
Chair Harrington, may I just add to that item, what is not in the packet is the PowerPoint for that presentation. I will be presenting that to your board, and then that will be updated thereafter.
wonderful. Thank you. Welcome, Director Roper. We can see you and everything, so it's so nice. Thank you to the team for helping us ensure that the hybrid setup works. Yes, Director Roper? Oh, you're muted still, sorry.
No, I couldn't get audio connected for some reason, so I was just making sure I didn't miss the,
Can you hear us now?
yes, I can.
And we can hear you. And your raising of hand works as well. Thank you so much. All right, the next item on today's agenda is the public comment period. This is an opportunity for members of our community to address the Board of Directors for up to 2 minutes. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to come speak with us today?
We do, Madam Director. First up, we have Lois, followed by Sharon. If you'd like to come forward to the testimony area.
Oh, we have members of our community in person. Thank you so much for coming in today. We've only been meeting in person since September 1st, so it's wonderful to see you here with us today. So thank you for
having us. Thank you.
So, go right ahead.
I have lived at Wood Spring Apartments since 2003, and I don't consider it an apartment, it's my home. And this whole problem with the going to market rate, not just for myself, but for all of the other residents that have surrounded us in this community, is causing incredible strain. And not exaggerating, a lot of us don't know where we're going to go, okay? And even if we try to move, most of us are finding a 2 to 4 year wait. So I don't know what January 1st, 2024 will mean. If there's any way that you can help us as well as all affordable housing issues, we'd really, really appreciate it. And also, especially for Wood Spring, I am co-chair for the executive committee of the organization, and we'd very much appreciate being involved in the discussions of the planning that's going forward for as the shallow subsidy is concerned. I'm doing well, 1 minute and 12 seconds. That's, for me, that's unusual. Anyway, I'm going to give this to Sherry, but I really am pleading with you to help us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sharon Heaton, and I lived at Wood Springs for 11 years, a little over. It broke my heart to have to move, but I did move in August, and the shallow subsidy, I had to sell all of my family heirlooms that I was inherited. Luckily, a couple of them had some value to help me move. I had to have help with packing because I received a cancer diagnosis at the same time. So it was rather costly. And I see in this shallow subsidy that you only want to give moving expenses to those that are still living there. Well, I hung in as long as I could. I couldn't afford the next rent increase. And I've only been gone 2 months. And quite frankly, now I have nothing to help finance my cancer care. So I'm hoping that you will see fit to have the shallow subsidy include those that had to move, whether they wanted to or not. It's quite literally life and death to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to each of you for coming and addressing the board today. We understand the impact of the transition of this apartment complex from the property owners. And if members of our community would like to know more about the story behind this appeal with Woodspring Apartments, you can find that information on the Washington County website. That's washingtoncountyor.gov. Just search for Woodspring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Director Harrington, we have Richard.
My mother raised me better. but
Please-
You need
please.
to see my buttons. Okay. By the end of this decade, there will be 3,000 less affordable properties available in Oregon. You're here to serve your community, and that's what we need you to do. We need you to get on the state and whatever you can to at least get some sort of a cap or some sort of a stabilization going, because right now I'm going to be on the street in 2 years. I went into this property 10 years ago looking at retiring out of it. Well, ain't going to happen. So now what? Blue tarps? How are we going to solve this? Has anybody got any thoughts, any ideas? What are we going to do? We got legislature coming up in February. What are we going to do? We've drafted an agenda to address them, but we need support. We need help. We need people like you scream, say, hey, stop, put some moratoriums on this, give us something. Because we're going to see a lot of people out on the street. I'm dealing with people in there, 94 years old, for God's sakes. Where are they going to go? No family left. Sherry doesn't have any family back. I don't have any family left. Lois doesn't have any family left here in the country. Where are you going to go? Does anybody have a clue? No. I want to thank you for what you're doing, though. Please keep it up, and we'll keep it up, too. All right? And if you guys want any help, let us know. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. We are aware that there is a very active tenant organization. We appreciate that. We appreciate every one of your efforts to exercise your voice and to help all of us in our community know more, learn more about aging gracefully here in our community. We on the board continue to actively work in partnership with our staff to try and advance solutions. And I know it's very hard,
It's scary.
and I won't
Scary.
ask you for any further patience, but rather thank you for sharing your comments with us today.
Thank you.
All right, was there any other members in the room that didn't get a chance to sign up that would like to provide public comment at this moment? Okay, seeing none, would any members on our online attendee list wish to provide comment? I'll give you just a moment to utilize the raised hand function. Okay, 2 signed up, so Heidi Johnstone. Heidi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Washington County Commissioners and Housing Authority Board of Directors. We received your pamphlet in the mail, informing us of what the subsidy program is about and how it will be instituted. But I myself, which I'm speaking as an individual here at Woodspring and a tenant, I put a plea out, and originally I had started the organizing in Washington with Washington County and the community and the electeds at large for all the tenants of Woodspring when our Section 42 program ended. Now I am speaking for those that do not have a voice, the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 participants that are vulnerable, and ask for your consideration in this new subsidy program and how it will be equitably applied for all the tenants of Woodspring Apartments. I am concerned because no equitable provisions are being made for those that are in danger of getting priced out by additional costs that are not covered by the Housing Choice Voucher Program and beyond the base rent, such as water, sewer, garbage, parking, and any additional costs that will come into effect at the discretion of the property owner. These additional costs that will come that are not regulated or covered except for water allowances. Section 8 tenants and Housing Choice Voucher Program choose to live at properties like Woodspring to avoid these additional costs, which have a great impact on their income and their ability to afford the essentials of life. I have heard the term double dipping, but even though Section 8 pays a water allowance, it does not pay, to my understanding, and understanding, the full amount. And while other tenants receive this assistance for the additional costs, Section 8 tenants will not. The Section 42 LIHTC programs did cover all these, and this will displace the participants and tenants of the Section 8 housing voucher as prices go up, more charges are instituted, and we have no protections for this whatsoever. So we ask you to include us, those that are not a part of this subsidy program. We are not double dipping. We're trying to be equitably housed just like everyone else and not be priced out by these peripheral costs that have no, like I said, no regulation. Housing, water, sewer, and garbage can be an upwards to $100 to $150 or more.
Thank you, Heidi. Next, we have Margot Black. Margot, can you hear us?
I can. I signed up for the 5 minutes testimony, but if it's all right, I can just go now.
Yeah, if you would like, please go ahead.
Good morning, Washington County Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. Thank you so much for your time today. I just want to follow up on some of the comments that the Woodspring residents have offered. And also, first of all, I just want to let you know that the info site on Washington County website about Woodspring is, the link is not working and a search does not produce anything. And that is kind of related to the overall concern I have to share today. The legislature allocated, or not the legislature, but OHCS allocated money to Washington County in March to stand up this subsidy program, which was originally envisioned to subsidize the difference in what residents were paying under the affordable program and what they're paying now. And when you think about it that way, such a subsidy program would have allowed the tenants to stay in place and, for as long as that program lasted. And the idea was it was going to be a pilot program. We'll show how successful it is. All these residents will be able to stay housed. And we'll go back to Salem and ask them to make it permanent in consideration of, like Richard said, these 3,000 units that are about to expire before 2030. Instead, the county, received the money. They did not communicate with Woodspring residents at all, not one word, until last Friday, when after begging and pleading for months, they finally sent out a mailer with typos and confusing and concerning information. I saw the mailer a week ahead of time, so did some of the other residents. We wrote to say, hey, there's typos, we have concerns and questions. We heard nothing back until Thursday, when they said, don't know why you thought we cared about your input. Mailer's already in the mail. And now there's a lot of concerns and questions. The residents at Woodspring should have been centered in this process. They should have been listened to. They should have been invited to talk about what they need and what will work. It is a one lump sum payment. They stand to lose their SSI benefits when they get it. That concern has not been addressed. And it is money for them to move away. It's not going to keep them housed. You can't give people $6,000 and say, figure out how to make this stretch for the next 10 years. It is money for them to move. And that was not the intent of the program. And I really do appreciate the work and care of all the folks around the table, but you guys missed the mark on this one. And the consequences are going to be dire. We lost a resident to suicide this summer after they received their rent increase notice. That, who knows why they chose to take their life, but why didn't the county communicate to Woodspring residents? in
Thank
March?
you, Margot.
Thank you, Margot, and I'll ask Ms. Angie to follow up with the board on the Woodspring situation. Thank you.
Right, Madam Director, that concludes this part of public testimony.
All right, thank you. No, this is the 2-minute comment period, and she chose to speak during the 2-minute. Yeah, yep, So the next item on our agenda is the approval of today's consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of the minutes of our September 6, 2022 meeting. What are the wishes of the board? We have a motion from Director Roper and a second from Director Rogers. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. Next, we'll move on to the action portion of our agenda. And today's action portion consists of 3 different action items. And we have Director Colmy Colavar here with us in the room, and Assistant Director Josh Kreitz for the first item, to approve home funding application for the PCC Rock Creek Affordable Housing Project. So we'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, Chair Harrington and Board of Directors. My name is Colmy Colavar, Housing Director. I'm pleased to be with you today. This action approval of authorization for us to apply for home funds. PCC, they have a very aggressive program to address the housing crisis as we know it. They have, there's one in Portland with Home Forward, the housing authority of the Multnomah County, that's under construction. They have one in the works, Cascade campus in Southeast, and also Sylvania campus. PCC Rock Creek has also identified a 3-acre site that they're willing to work with the housing authority on for up to 120 units or thereabouts. It's very preliminary. We have a general understanding of next steps. And Rebecca Ocken was going to join us by video. She is
Hello. Hi, Colmy.
Hello, Ms. Oken. We can see you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I'll yield to Ms. Oken to tell us about the vision, the grand vision of PCC, then I'll continue from there.
Oh, thank you so much. Hello, directors. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. As many of you know, PCC is the largest higher ed institution in the state of Oregon. We have now about 50,000 full and part-time students. And we know pre-COVID that about 56% of our students experienced some form of housing insecurity, and 19% experienced or self-reported experiencing homelessness altogether. Given these facts, along with the food insecurity that we know our students are facing, we've determined that we can allocate up to 8 acres throughout our district to affordable community housing. We've set aside, as Colmy mentioned, 3 acres here at Rock Creek, where we hope to bring on as many units as we can that are open to the community. Because our students are not consistently enrolled in classes, we do not want their housing tied to their enrollment status, but we will very heavily market this asset to our students. We certainly don't want to provide land without some kind of asset and amenity coming to our students. So that is a part of our agreement with the Housing Authority. We are excited to have this happen. As Colmy mentioned, we do have a project that will be under construction in the fall with Home Forward. They'll bring on 84 units at a 1-acre parcel in Northeast Portland. And in Southeast Portland, we've teamed with Human Solutions, who recently received 11 million in LIFT funding to help us bring housing to our Southeast campus. So Rock Creek is certainly one of the 5 projects that we hope to see go forward, and we're excited to have this partnership. Thank you, Comey.
Thank you, Rebecca. And we'll just go through the slides real quick. Next slide, please. So what you see is the Rock Creek campus area view. Next one, and the site is on the east end of the campus on Springville Road. Next slide, please. And so our potential funding sources, low-income housing tax credit equity will be one. Now, low-income housing tax credit does not allow full-time students. Somebody mentioned double dipping earlier, but part-time students are eligible. Home program is the action before you today. We also would apply for funding from Oregon Housing and Community Services. And would also be including HUD funds in the form of vouchers or other types of rental assistance that the end users will be eligible for. And then there will be some debt on the development. So it's very preliminary. Next slide, please. So home is managed by Office of Community Development, and one of the requirements of home is that your board of directors authorize you to apply. So that's what we're trying to accomplish today. Next slide, please. And so just a rough timeline. Today will be the home application. Then we'll work towards outreach, community engagement and design, and then funding applications in 2024. And then from 2024, we hope construction starts and complete the following year. This is the last slide. Thank you. So I will, happy to answer any questions you may have about the potential home application.
Directors, do you have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Vice Chair Willie.
Yeah, Comey, just for clarification, I wasn't understanding the residency requirements. You were not going to make it a requirement that they be enrolled? Or so I wasn't sure who actually qualifies, and if they are a student and then 6 months from now they drop out. I mean, so how does that work?
Yes, I think Rebecca mentioned that the goal is to market heavily to the student population, but because of the financing sources, it will be open to the general public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is required from the funding sources that anybody who is eligible apply.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick comment, Chair Harrington. Really excited overall about the sort of trying to think outside of only sort of our typical partners. I think it's really important that we're bringing in education partners, bringing in health partners, bringing in lots of different relationships across the fold, because I think one of the ways that we can advance equity is also by really connecting with community organizations and folks that are building these relationships, right? So just excited to see the partnership between PCC and the Housing Authority, and really supportive of more innovative partnerships to make sure that we're thinking about how to bring in those different resources and supports from education and other resources across the state. So great work.
Thank you. Yeah. Churches too are stepping up. I mean, you heard earlier testimony about the lack of affordable housing, so this is our work to increase that supply.
And I was reminded that the opportunity for faith-based organizations, churches, to donate their land, or, provide the land for use for publicly funded affordable housing was made possible thanks to the constitutional amendment changed that the voters approved in November of 2018. So, any other questions or comments?
So just for clarification, at the PCC Rock Creek location, is it 84 units or was it 120 units that I heard?
The 84 units you mentioned was in Portland. We are planning for up to 120 units.
I think this is I second what Mike had to say. That this is very important for students. As a previous student from going to school out in Killingsworth all the way to Rock Creek to Sylvania, the struggle is real for students. And right before the pandemic, it hurt a lot of full-time and part-time students. So this is a convenience factor. They will have a lot of security and a sense of that they can focus on their education and try to get to that goal that they have in mind. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Roper. I'll just add that I really applaud the work of the Housing Authority and our Community Development Group to continue to practice the art of the possible and using every tool available through federal funding, state funding, local funding, you name it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I also want to highlight how having two board members on the Housing Authority Board of Directors who come from the community with their lived experience really adds to the direction and the support that we're able to provide to ensure that there is more affordable housing here in our community. So directors, I would ask for a motion to approve this resolution authorizing the authority to submit a home funding application for the PCC Rock Creek project.
Motion.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. And on to the next opportunity, and this is with regard to moving forward with all the particulars for the Gateway Commons solution. So we'll turn it back to you, Mr. Calabar.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. Yes, the Gateway Commons apartment is a 138-unit apartment here in Hillsborough by the Arches. The previous owners, Cascade Housing Partners, we, Housing Authority, were partners with them. They decided to sell a little over a year ago. We had better luck than we did with the Woodspring in that they sold to an owner who is willing to preserve the apartments as affordable housing. So the action we have in front of you is to approve the resolution and order authorizing the director to execute all required documents and instruments. And by that, we, the Housing Authority, will be a special limited partner or a Class B member, as the lawyers describe it, which will enable the current owners to have property tax exemption, and it will enable us, well, the community, to benefit from affordable rents for another 60 years. Because part of the new financing is they agreed to a 60-year, they have a comprehensive rehabilitation plan for the units, and we are pleased to be their partner. The company is called DEFCO. They have thousands of housing units in their portfolio. They're well-funded, and we are happy to work with them to preserve the Gateway Commons as affordable housing long-term.
Are there any questions or comments from the Housing Authority on this proposal? I will just add my thanks to Comey and to the team for your work. This is an example of how there are different affordability periods for different finance instruments, and the potential loss of this affordable housing in our marketplace frankly, it scares me because it only makes a bad situation worse. You've explained how the Housing Authority of Washington County staff diligently works on options for these these challenges, which are also opportunities. This is just a prime example of the team really working these situations, and as you said, in this case, the property owner has been open to selling to another owner who is committed to keep the affordable housing ownership opportunity in place. I'm really grateful for the lesson of this particular project, and I'm very thankful for the team work that's been involved here. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair Harrington and Commissioners.
So do we have a motion to approve the resolution and order authorizing the executive director to execute all required documents and instruments for Gateway Commons?
Second.
Motion.
We have a motion from Director Roper, a second from Director Savaro. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 7-0. And next, on to the third item with regard to the pre-development documents for additional projects. Director Calavar.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. This action before you is to approve pre-development contract and resolution and order to authorize the executive director to form entities, support applications for funding, and execute required project documents. So this is for the phase 2 of our portfolio rehabilitation. You've heard this over and over. The Housing Authority owns outright 650 units countywide. The last 3 years, we've been working on the first 332 units. That was AHP 4. It closed in the summer. Construction is underway at 2 of the 5 buildings. That was a $150 million transaction. This piece is 283 units, correct, Josh? 283 units, 87 million transaction is what we contemplate. So the pre-development, this is the testing, intrusive inspections, architects, engineers, all of that. So this will be from local fund. This is Housing Authority funds will be used for this pre-development and need to be reimbursed at closing. We were at the work session with a PowerPoint, which we don't think we need today, but we could go over that. But this action will get us to getting all our portfolio rehabbed and ready for the long term, and long term, 60 years or more. That's the work we've been doing behind the scenes, and now we need your support to go take it forward.
Thank you, Mr. Calavar. Are there any questions or comments from the directors? Do we have a motion to approve the pre-development contract and resolution and order in the matter of authorizing our executive director to form the entities, support the applications for funding, and execute required project documents for this affordable housing portfolio phase 2?
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Director Savaro, a second from Director Roper. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Aye. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 7-0. And while our actions here on approving these 3 different programs may seem simple, there's an awful lot of work that has gone in behind this. So thank you to the team. Next, we have our second public comment period. This is an opportunity for members of our community for address the board for up to 5 minutes a person. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who wishes to speak to us at this time?
Madam Director, we did have 2 people that spoke at the beginning for the 2 minutes. So did we have any new attendees in the audience who would like to provide public comment to the Housing Authority for up to 5 minutes? Not seeing anyone in person. Would any members on our online attendees wish to provide the comment? I'll give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any hands, Madam Director.
Thank you, Clerk Moss.
Chair
Next,
Harrington, I have a question for Kevin. Could we ask the person that took the 2 minutes to but really signed up for the 5 minutes if they are online, if they want to speak again?
Commissioner Fye, they are not currently online.
do we have any board of director announcements at this stage? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn the Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting? Oh, I'm sorry,
Oh, no, just a movement to adjourn.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? We have a second from Director Roper. All those in favor of adjourning the Housing Authority Board of Directors meeting this day, Tuesday, October 4th, please raise your hand or say aye. Thank you, directors. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 7-0. We'll take a quick break and then reconvene as the Washington County Board of Directors. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for having me.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone.
All right, thank you, Chair Harrington. The Washington County Board of Commissioners is now meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and all other county service districts in this regular sessions, October 4th, 2022. Commissioner Treese?
Here.
Commissioner Fye?
Here.
Commissioner Rogers?
Here.
Vice Chair Willie?
Here.
Chair Harrington?
Here. Thank you, Clerk Moss. The first item on our agenda is public communication. Clerk Moss, who do we have from our community who would like to come speak to the board for up to 2 minutes?
We had no one sign up, Madam Chair. Would any members in our attendance here in the room wish to provide testimony for up to 2 minutes on any county-related topic? Not seeing anyone in the room. Would anyone in our online attendance wish to address the board for up to 2 minutes? I'll give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing anyone at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. And I forgot to mention previously that we had a couple of packet updates for today's meeting, October 4th. Action item 1, F1, was revised to include a staff report modification, and item 3, F3, was added to today's agenda. Next, we have adoption of our consent agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of 5 items: 1 set of minutes, 1 item from the Sheriff's Office, 2 items from Land Use and Transportation, and 1 item from Support Services. What are the wishes of the commission? We have a motion from Commissioner Rogers, a second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor of adopting today's consent agenda, please raise your hand or say aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to proclamations, and we have a couple of those today. The first one is with regard to our Land Use and Transportation Department around community planning. So we'll turn the floor over to Ms. Erin Wardell.
Thank you, Chair Harrington and members of the Board of Commissioners. My name is Erin Wardell, and I am the Interim Planning and Development Services Manager. Today, we have a proclamation declaring National Community Planning Month. Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, boroughs, townships, rural areas, and other places, community planning can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices and more equitable outcomes for people who live, work, and play in our communities. And whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all people to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and community members who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. And whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories. And whereas the American Planning Association and its professional institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, endorse National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight the contributions sound planning and plan implementation make to the quality of our settlements and environment. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of professional planners, planning commissioners, and other community members who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of Washington County. We recognize their many valuable contributions and extend our heartfelt thanks for their continued commitment to public service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on this 4th day of October 2022, the Washington County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as Community Planning Month in Washington County.
Thank you, Ms. Wardell. Commissioners, do you have any comments you'd like to make on today's proclamation? Do we have a motion to adopt today's proclamation?
So moved with great pleasure.
Second with great pleasure.
Thank you for that motion and second from Commissioner Rogers as well as Commissioner Treese. I will just add that I appreciate all of the professionals that we have here in the organization, and that includes many who have earned credentials through planning organizations such as mentioned here, the American Planning Association and the American Institute of Certified Planners. We as a county work cooperatively with the 13 cities here within Washington County, as well as with our regional partners. We also have, through our team and our responsibility, additional requirements for doing planning for the urban unincorporated areas. So those neighborhoods that are outside of cities that often are mistaken for parts of incorporated cities. We're a backstop, so to speak. We have terrific communities here in Washington County, and we couldn't do it without our great planning staff, we need also great planning commissioners and the expertise that our active community members provide, including in our community participation organizations. So I'm grateful for all of that. We have a motion and a second to adopt today's proclamation. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. And we have one more proclamation for today. That is to proclaim October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And at this stage, we'll turn it over to Ms. Erin Calvert, one of our Assistant County Administrators. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. It is my pleasure to be here today to ask your board to proclaim October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And for the record, my name is Erin Calvert. I'm one of the 4 Assistant County Administrators with the County Administrative Office, as Chair Harrington just mentioned. In prior years, a team of county departments, community agencies, and survivors of domestic violence provided a presentation before asking your board to proclaim October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This year, the Domestic Violence Awareness Month Planning Committee, which includes many of the same departments, community agencies, and survivors of domestic violence, worked together to develop a proclamation to share with the county and city jurisdictions, and scheduled several events throughout the month of October to raise awareness to end domestic violence. Today, I want to focus on the Gathering of Hope event on Tuesday, October 11th from 12 to 1 p.m. at the Hillsborough Civic Center Plaza. This event will honor those who have survived and remember those whose lives have been lost to domestic violence. All community members are welcome to attend. The program will include a proclamation reading, survivor speaker, candle lighting and moment of silence, as well as live music, and there will be food trucks on site. As your board knows, the public safety system in Washington County works collaboratively with the Washington County Family Justice Center, the Domestic Violence Resource Center, and similar agencies throughout the county to focus on the safety of victims and their families and ensure access to justice. The goal of intervention is to stop the cycle of violence, and the focus of intervention is to protect the victim from further harm. In 1989, Congress passed a law designating October of that year as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that same legislation has been reenacted every year since. The County Administrative Office, in partnership with other county departments, along with the support of our community partners, respectfully requests that the Washington County Board of Commissioners make this proclamation and acknowledge the importance of domestic violence awareness in our communities. And with that, I believe Commissioner Willie is going to read the proclamation.
Thank you, Erin. A proclamation, Board of Commissioners for Washington County, a proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October 4, 2022. Whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender identities, social economic levels, religions, backgrounds, beliefs, and abilities, but often has a disproportionate effect on communities and groups impacted by inequity. And whereas domestic violence includes physical, emotional, social, sexual, spiritual, financial, and digital abuse, and can occur between family members, intimate partners, and within dating relationships. And whereas Oregon sees a higher rate of violence and abuse than the national average, with 40% of women and 36% of men experiencing domestic violence. And whereas domestic violence impacts vulnerable victims, including children, as approximately 50% of Washington County children who are child abuse victims also live in homes with domestic violence. And whereas multiple scientific and medical studies show that trauma, especially for children who experience what is known as adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, increases the likelihood the individual may struggle with addiction, mental health, and other challenges later in life. And whereas the social and economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic continues to affect the ability of survivors to seek and access ongoing services. And whereas in 2021, the Family Justice Center provided a total number of 2,628 services to 1,902 survivors, and the Domestic Violence Resource Center fielded 6,331 crisis line calls and provided a total of 12,236 crisis services to over 2,025 survivors. And whereas our Washington County community has united together to address the impact of all forms of family violence, including domestic violence, child abuse, and neglect, and is working to establish a new facility called the Family Peace Center of Washington County. And whereas domestic violence incidents are some of the most complex and dangerous incidents that law enforcement respond to in our community, putting their lives at risk every day in the belief that a coordinated community response is necessary to support survivors, hold offenders accountable, and work toward ending the cycle of violence. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent platform to show support for domestic violence advocates, crisis hotline staff, victim service organizations, the prosecutors who hold offenders accountable, and law enforcement officers in our community, and provides community members of Washington County the opportunity to learn more about preventing domestic violence and show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, resources, hope, and assistance to victims. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Washington County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Commissioners, any other comments? Is there a motion to adopt today's proclamation?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to presentations, and I'm pleased to turn the mic over to our CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Clean Water Services, Ms. Diane Taniguchi-Dennis.
Thank you, Chair Harrington and Board of Clean Water Services. I'd like to introduce Logan Olds. He is our Managing Director for our utility operations. So with that, Logan, I'll have you introduce the team and share with the board this wonderful achievement.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate it. Good morning, Commissioners. It is truly a pleasure to speak with you today about something that we're obviously very excited about, and that's yet another year of excellent performance at Clean Water Services in meeting our common water quality goals. Of course, none of that would be possible without your support. And what's interesting is oftentimes when I sit with elected officials, you are frequently faced with the never-ending problems that come before you that you diligently think about and respond to. What I'm proud about is that Clean Water Services is here to bring you solutions to those problems. And there's not too many places that can say that. Whether it's aging infrastructure and how we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion associated with that infrastructure, whether it's green infrastructure and how we can incorporate natural systems into what we do, or more importantly, especially with what we see in the news today, whether it relates to climate adaptation and what can we do with technologies at our, we'll admit, large industrial facilities to try and reduce our footprint. So there are a number of exciting areas that lay before us that have any number of different types of solutions, and I look forward to your involvement with our team in helping resolve those issues. A couple of fun little statistics to share with you. We perform over 100,000 water quality analyses each and every year in order to maintain that permit compliance. Of that 100,000, a little over 10% or 10,000 are specific to DEQ and meeting both our state and federal permit requirements. This is one of the most complex permits in the entire nation, and I'm sure all of you know Bob and what a fantastic job he does in both managing the permit, thinking about it, and providing a future for us. One that's a little less known is that our combined facilities treat more water than is contained in all of Hagg Lake on an annual basis. So, not to be crude, but that's a lot of flush toilets, right? So it's a pleasure to be able to take that water, clean it up, reuse it, and place it back into the natural environment. With that, obviously it takes a huge team. So all of us at Clean Water Services are focused on the singular goal of ensuring that we meet permit, so protecting public health and the environment. Although the three gentlemen I'm going to introduce you to today are here to accept the award, understand that it's all of us doing our jobs together, including each and every one of you, that ensures that we protect the water quality and the public health of Washington County. So with that, I'd like to introduce first Mr. Tom Stowe, the Superintendent of Rock Creek. Next to him is Mr. C.J. Baxter, Superintendent of both Forest Grove and Hillsborough. And next to him, Mr. Dustin Hagman, Superintendent for the Durham facility. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's it.
Well,
Photo.
so we're going, first, I want to amplify the achievements for these facilities. We on the board have had the opportunity to be pretty educated about what is involved to ensure that this system performs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single day of the year, no matter what businesses or residents flush down the system. So the performance of the Durham treatment facility, the Rock Creek treatment facility, the Hillsborough treatment facility has been really exemplary. And what the team is here sharing with all of us is that Clean Water Services received 2 platinum awards, which was given to a facility with a consistent record of full compliance for 5 consecutive years. The Durham facility has 6 consecutive years of perfect compliance. Rock Creek has an astonishing 18 consecutive years of compliance. Hillsborough received its 3rd consecutive gold award, which was presented to a facility with perfect compliance in a calendar year. And Forest Grove had just 1 minor temperature exceedance due to a mechanical failure last year. But with that, received a silver award given to a facility with no more than 5 violations in a calendar year. So our team of engineers who take samples, of researchers who analyze those samples, to our operators that keep the various complex systems working and integrate new systems, biological or chemical, have a lot to be proud of. And on behalf of your community, I know that we are very proud of you and would like to join you down on the floor for a recognition picture to memorialize your excellence as recognized by the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, which we occasionally throw the term around, NACWA, as an abbreviation of. So thank you again.
That's also fun. Oh, it's perfect. Then you got the background up. Oh my God. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Nice job, Mark.
Yeah. Doing my best.
I know.
I'm trying to figure out how I support these folks. Doing the work.
Thank you, Commissioners, for that photo opportunity to thank our Clean Water Services team. And for our community members, I neglected to put in my annual plug for a very important advisory board, the Clean Water Advisory Committee, also known as CWAC. We have multiple positions to appoint new members. It is an important committee that has the opportunity to weigh in on policy and investment decisions for the utility known as Clean Water Services. If you are at all interested in climate science, this is an opportunity to totally geek out on all of that. You'll learn a lot, so I hope you'll consider it. Next, our clerk has let me know that a community member was mistaken on when our meeting started, so missed the 2-minute public comment period. So we're going to take a quick pause before going into our action agenda for this meeting and come back to the 2-minute public comment period. So Clerk Moss.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. We have Jennifer Newton. Jennifer, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you, first of all, on behalf of our neighbors here in our area and my husband, Jamie Newton, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today and for your attention to the public health hazards at 18171 Northwest Sellers Road. It's just north of Banks. That's the property owned by Mr. Walt Betchert. Our property is immediately adjacent to Mr. Betchert's property on 2 full sides. There's the bulk of his 7 acres are on the north of us behind a stand of fir trees. And there's a long strip across the east side of our home and property all along the front of our property. I know we know you've all seen the documentation that's been presented to the county. I know that Commissioner Willie has listened to us and seen our presentation with lots of photos we've been taking of the burgeoning garbage pile that's been accumulating across the front. It's also spilling over onto our property on both sides. This pile of garbage consists largely of household waste and food waste that Mr. Bedger brings back truckloads of multiple times each week. The garbage is rotting, the bags are frequently ripped open by vermin, and the contents are covered in maggots and flies. We now have huge rats all over our property. And the stench, I'm just here to speak to the fact that the stench from this property is absolutely putrid. We aren't able to go out and enjoy our yard, our front yard. The second you open the front door of the house, it smells like you're stepping into a landfill. We've lived here for 9 going on 10 years. We've never had so many flies and mosquitoes. We've never had so many huge rats in our barn with our little Shetland sheep. And the one thing that I'd like to really make clear is that we have tried multiple times to deal with Mr. Betchert in a compassionate way, because he clearly has a problem. And when we first moved in, we figured, we knew he was collecting some junk cars and stuff like that, but we live in the country. People just keep to themselves. It's important to keep good neighbors. And, we tried to speak with him. At one point I was crying, pleading with him to please not pile household garbage out there. And
thank you, Ms. Newton.
So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. We appreciate all the information that we have received from community members through phone calls, emails, constituent reports, meetings, and so forth. To all of our community members, we here at the county have been working this issue, and abatement actions are underway. But it just underscores how we do all come together as a community, and how if we don't all do our part, then things can get out of control and impact others. So please know that your county government is moving forward in taking appropriate actions. Next, we'll move on to the action section of our agenda today. The first item relates to adopting an interim proposal for upgrading the Washington County bilingual pay policy. And I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Eva Labonte for a staff report.
Chair Harrington, I'm actually going to be taking this staff report. And Clerk Moss, if you can display the PowerPoint, please. So the action before your board today is approve the resolution in order to adopt revisions to the Washington County bilingual pay policy. As Chair Harrington indicated, this is an interim step into the overall policy review process. Once again, my name is Tanya Angie, and I'm your county administrator. Next slide, please. So a bit of background. The U.S. Census Bureau indicates that nearly 50,000 members of our Washington community over the age of 5 report they speak English less than very well. These are community members that we serve with county services. Spanish represents the most frequently preferred language, although there's several other languages that are reflected in this data as well. Currently, we have 178 employees that are receiving our bilingual pay benefit. Most have the fluency in Spanish. As a part of policy, the county's language assistance policy and federal law and rules mandate that the organization must remove language barriers for anyone seeking county services. Next slide, please. So what is an interim pay adjustment, and how does this relate to a comprehensive review, and why is this action before your board today? The compensation provided to bilingual employees under this policy has not been previously tied to inflation or any other market factors. As it is included within an administrative policy, this action must come before your board through a resolution in order for any pay increase. I am recommending an increase to $75. This has been determined by taking the pay rate from the last time the payment has been adjusted in 2007. So this is similarly to how many times we look at our annual employee wages and the CPI index. I do want to repeat, the wage has not increased since 2007, even though the policy has been reviewed and updated many times. This is the only type of compensation that has not increased over time based on my review and information that I've been able to find. So moving forward, I do want to highlight that a comprehensive review and update of the bilingual pay policy is underway. Actually, I did learn from our equity officer, Ms. Latricia Tillman, that we have completed 149 surveys of current bilingual employees. We are hearing from our employees who provide this service here in Washington County. The results of the process will be presented to your board in the future. I have heard some requests from your board, individual board members, for information on how do other jurisdictions approach bilingual pay? What are our bilingual pay services provided? How is this work in action? And what are the future needs for our workforce? Next slide. In addition, I do want to highlight for your board, the County Administration Office is examining the current process and procedures to adopt, update, and review administrative policies to ensure a consistent review process is in place and necessary updates are addressed. So in other words, that we don't go this span of time without pay increases from 2007 to today. So more information will be provided to your board as we work through what a revised process will be. And next slide. So the recommended action before your board is approve the resolution in order to adopt revisions to the Washington County bilingual pay policy. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, are there any questions on our staff report?
Yes, if I could, Chair. Thank you, Tanya, for this, and I know that we've talked about this a little bit in advance. And so I'm looking at the paragraph 3 elements of the policy in both A and B. And I think, as you've stated, there's 178 employees that are currently receiving this additional pay. I don't have a problem with any of this. I'd like to see a little bit more, though, structure, I guess, to the departments. And it's almost like we budget them for this. And so they have a specific number and can justify that specific number for each of their departments. So we can actually have a little bit more control, I think, as to how many employees do we really need to be bilingual in each of these departments. So do we need 178 employees? Or do we just have 178 employees who have applied? So I have a little bit of problem with not having that kind of structure, I guess, and control over the determining how many people we need to be bilingual.
Commissioner Willie, thank you for that question, and we will take that into consideration when we bring the full policy review back to your board. One of the questions in the survey was understanding workload. What is our workload of our current bilingual employees, and how has that changed over time? Through this process, I have been able to have connections and conversations with our current bilingual employees and have a bit more understanding of how that's changed as our community has grown. And diversified. And so that information will be provided to your board in the full review.
Great, thank you.
Any other commissioners have any comments or questions?
I have a comment, Chair Harrington. Tanya, this is a really good policy, and I really appreciate you bringing this forward. I know the value of having staff that speak that language, especially when our community and constituents need it. When I was running the contact tracing, it was so important to have Spanish-speaking staff on board, just so that in the event that you're talking to a client or contact, that you need to speak to that language. So I really value having our staff that are bilingual and that we're compensating. I was hoping, and maybe you can provide maybe a little bit of a context behind the retroactive piece being July rather than since the policy wasn't reviewed, it'd probably be a cost burden to Washington County. But what could have been a solution, perhaps a halfway to the staff, especially if they've been utilizing their language and haven't been compensated. So what would be the context behind that? Meeting people halfway and perhaps being a retroactive, maybe 2010.
Commissioner Fye, we will take that under advisement with the full policy review. For right now, this is working within our adopted budget construct. And not waiting until that full policy comes forward to make a wage adjustment for our employees that are using the skill on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner comments or questions? I would just like to add that I appreciate, Ms. Angie, in your short tenure thus far here in Washington County, how you are having a positive impact on improving our workplace culture and our workforce development. This is an example of that, how this payment for additional expertise as needed for delivery of services to our multicultural community, as we have all been more informed by the 2020 census information, shows us, this level of support has not been updated for 15 years. And it's also out of alignment with the market and is part of what I believe is an important workforce retention and possibly recruitment as well. I think this is a good interim step, and I appreciate that it will be retroactive to the beginning of this fiscal year and moving forward as you and your team continue to go through the comprehensive assessment of the policy and the payment to our employees. So thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution in order to adopt changes to the Washington County bilingual pay policy?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to the county-caused abatement of public health nuisance. Interesting title. It's actually, we didn't cause the problem, but we're certainly going to be moving forward after this with the appropriate abatement. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Mira Samantel, our Interim Director of Health and Human Services, and Mr. Thomas Eggleston, our Solid Waste and Recycling Manager. That title doesn't do the justice for all that falls under your umbrella as well. We've got a great team working for us, so we'll turn it over to you for an excellent staff report.
Thank you so much, Chair Harrington. Well, good morning, Chair Harrington, Board of Commissioners. As the Chair said, my name is Mira Samantel. I'm the Interim Director of Health and Human Services, and we are here before you today for an action item for your consideration to cause the abatement of public health nuisance conditions at 18171 Northwest Sellers Road. And as the Chair said, we do have a presentation for you today. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Tom Eggleston for the presentation.
Thanks, Mira. Good morning, Chair Harrington, Board of Commissioners. Nice to be with you this morning. Next slide, please. Excuse me. A quick overview of the staff report. We have some background information that we'll share with your board. We will go over the property search and findings from earlier this summer. We'll discuss the abatement order that has been issued and that is before your board today as well, and then a recommendation from staff. Next slide, please. The background on the location of the property, the address was mentioned as 18171 Northwest Sellers Road. It is addressed as Banks, Oregon. It is actually unincorporated Washington County, north of the city of Banks, north of the Highway 26. You can see on the map on the right of your screen is kind of a zoomed out area where the property is located. And then zoomed in on the left side is a snapshot of the tax lot. The property is 7.53 acre parcel and is zoned as AF10. Next slide, please. A quick timeline of the recent enforcement actions on the property. In March of 2017, staff received some information and complaints from community members living near this property. Complaints were regarding vehicles, boats, trailers, RVs, and garbage. In September of 2017, LUT initiated its enforcement actions on the property and issued a notice of violation. In early 2018, HHS officially referred the case over to the Department of Environmental Quality as an illegal solid waste disposal site. In August of 2018, DEQ had inspected the property and commenced their enforcement actions for an illegal solid waste disposal site. In 2019, April, LUT issued 2 violation notices to the property owner for the illegal auto wrecking yard on the site and the unauthorized storage of 5 or more inoperable vehicles. In April of 2019, DEQ finalized their enforcement actions and issued a civil penalty for a fine of $87,000 on the property. In May of 2019, LUT finalized their enforcement process, and the hearings officer for the county issued fines of $25,000 for the illegal auto wrecking yard. In July 19, DEQ moved to file lien as they saw no improvements or no attempt to clean up the property, so they filed a lien against the property. In early 2022, staff and HHS and the Solid Waste and Recycling Division became aware of escalation of the accumulation on the property and concerns for public health related to more putrescible waste materials and fresh household garbage being accumulated on the property, and we initiated a public health investigation under Chapter 8.20, which is the Solid Waste Nuisance, or the Nuisance Control Code. We tried to gain access to the property multiple times. We received no permission to gain access to the property, so in July of this year, we received a search warrant from Justice of the Peace, Judge Dan Cross, and our health officer and our code enforcement from HHS were able to search the property and conduct a thorough investigation. Following that search, the health officer determined that the situation was a public health hazard and issued an abatement order in August of 2022. Next slide, please. The property search and findings, this is the language from the health officer's findings of the search. She found an excessive accumulation and a collection of storage of solid waste and garbage, including putrescible materials in various states of decay. We heard the neighbors earlier describing some of the garbage, and this picture is also from that search. The accumulation materials also such as tires, barrels, and containers potentially containing flammable or hazardous materials that may create a fire hazard, and then also the accumulation of materials such as garbage tires and inoperable appliances that are creating a vector harborage. That was the health officer's findings. Next slide, please. As I noted in my timeline, on August 5th, the health officer issued an abatement order to the property owner pursuant to her power granted to her in Chapter 8.20 of the Washington County Code. That code provides a 15-day response time for the property owner, and that response time was August 20th of this year. We received no response from the property owner, and we've received no communication from them for all of our communications from HHS over the last 6 months. We've been serving letters through a deputy, so we understand that the property owner is receiving the letters. We mail certified and have a deputy serve those letters. Chapter 8.20 is this Public Health Nuisance Code does offer or does provide that if the nuisance conditions have not been abated by the owner or person in charge of the property, the Board of the County Commissioners may, at the request of the health officer, cause the nuisance to be abated, hence the strange title on the action item. This essentially means that the county the code gives your Board of Commissioners the authority to direct the county to clean up, abate the property or clean it up in the absence of the property owner doing it themselves. The health officer has made such a recommendation or request that was documented in your work session or your agenda packet and the resolution in order before you today. Staff have worked with multiple contractors. We received bids from 6 contractors. It's a tough bid because we can't get on site to do a job walk, and we are estimating that a cleanup will cost in the range of $175,000 to $300,000 to abate the public health hazards. That doesn't include the inoperable vehicles and other things that might be on that property as well. It is worth noting that, as noted in the agenda item, that these types of actions are extremely infrequent. The Solid Waste and Recycling Division does not maintain an abatement fund, an abatement budget. These are our last resort under the nuisance code, and we rarely move into this type of action. So our understanding is this would have to come out of the general fund and would be a general fund transfer in the next budget reconciliation process. Staff have talked with Chief Financial Officer Munn and County Administrator Angie, and we have laid out a process that we would take to achieve that. Next slide, please. Recommendation is from staff and the health officer, Dr. Baumann. She's not here today, but I confirmed with her, this is her recommendation as well, not just her request, that your board does issue an order causing abatement of the public health hazards at the property discussed today, and that a funding source be identified until such a time that the county can collect funds from the property owner or receive them through a lien and potentially a foreclosure process. The one thing I would add is I know that County Council office member Brad Anderson, I almost called him County Council, sorry, Mr. Carr, has shared in a hot sheet item with your board that we do have some legal questions about the authority to get on the property and how we're going to affect this order if it is approved by your board. So it is not like if we order this to happen, it's going to happen next week. There is some process we have to work through with the sheriff's office and with the courts in order to make sure that we have the proper legal authorities to carry out this order if approved by your board. And that concludes my staff report. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions on this staff report or any comments you would like to share? Go ahead, Vice Chair Willie.
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I really appreciate you and your group's diligence to follow up on this. This has been, as your timeline indicated, a very long process and pretty agonizing to the neighbors, but I'm very happy that we're moving ahead on this. I don't know what the timelines on the legal process that you indicated there in the last remarks, but certainly want us to continue moving ahead on this. You indicated that we will not be removing the vehicles. So whose responsibility is that?
So ultimately, it's the property owner's responsibility in the way it's established today. The fine from the hearings officer from the LUT violations was related to the illegal auto wrecking yard and the vehicles on the property. So there is an outstanding order for those vehicles to be removed, and that fine has been levied against the property. I understand it's in collections. It's not in lien yet, but that could be an action that the county moves to. So the nuisance code doesn't regard vehicles, so we can't use the nuisance code as a tool to remove the vehicles from the property. However, we have been working with the Department of Environmental Quality very closely on this case, and we are working, we are trying to coordinate together so that we can effect an entire cleanup of the property if we get to this point. So there is pathways forward following a nuisance abatement that might result in lien filings and foreclosures. And if the property does become a foreclosed property and the county takes control over some mechanism down the road, the DQ is invested in helping the county identify a long-term solution for getting the property cleaned up. So I can't promise anything, but that's kind of the pathway. And the nuisance code is not the tool to get there necessarily.
Yeah, okay, I get that. Yeah, I just want us to be able to preclude a repeat, or if the owner would decide to start hauling in vehicles and enhance the number of inoperable vehicles that are on the property, whatever the case is. Obviously, he pays no attention to whatever legal enforcements that we have, so I don't anticipate that he's going to work along with trying to clean up the automobiles or anything else. So, so yeah, this is going to be a continuing saga, I think. So, but thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie.
Commissioner Rogers?
One question and one comment. My comment first is that this is beyond the pale of human decency. I mean, at a certain point, you have to be responsible. And so I'm all in favor of the motion. My question is, and it goes along with what Commissioner Willie was saying, how do we get in there very quickly so that we don't, one, see more refuge, so we cost more, it costs more to our taxpayers. I only represent one district, but I can tell you that no one wants to be paying for this sort of problem that somebody's causing. So how are we going to stop this? And is there any enforcement that allow us to do
It's a very good question, Commissioner Rogers. We're concerned also about a re-offense, essentially, if the accumulation just resumes after a cleanup, and so the county's paying to clean up the garbage, and then it comes back as a new accumulation. So we've been working closely with County Council and the DEQ at the state to talk about what happens if that scenario plays out. So we're trying to really map out different pathways depending on what the outcome of this is, because we don't expect this to be the end of the chapter. So there is, we're having conversations with County Council about potential lien foreclosure. So if the county has liens against the property and the amount that we're talking about, the cleanup cost would be, there is legal pathways for the county to take control of the property, and that's something we could decide as an organization to do if we see a reoffense or a reaccumulation occurring. If that plays out, that means that the county takes control of the property, and the offender could essentially be trespassed from that property, and it becomes property of the county, and that the cleanup then would be final, I think. Other pathways, I'm not sure. We can't really file a restraining order against someone from their own property. And so I don't know what the outcome is in terms of the long-term pathways, but I think there are pathways there. It's just going to take some time. And it's a delicate process in terms of the foreclosure process as well. The property taxes are up to date, and there's no tax foreclosure pathway. I know Brad's here. I don't know if County Council has anything to add, or Mr. Carr, but that's kind of what we've been discussing with the council's office.
Mr. Carr, it's hard for me to see over there if you had anything you wanted to add, so just flag me down if there are comments you wish to make.
I do not. It's a constant challenge, however, to force people to do things that they don't want to do, and the tools that society gives us are limited, and I think this team's doing a great job of using those limited tools.
Commissioner Treese.
Thank you for the questions from my fellow commissioners, and thank you for the work that's gone into this. I know that there's been considerable. The one question that I would ask and the request that I'd make is that as we go through this process, that we're also addressing mental health issues that might be a part of this situation. And I'm confident that our team will be doing that, but I just want to raise that issue as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Treese, for the comment. We definitely have been offering supports to Mr. Betcher throughout this process. Unfortunately, he has not responded to any of our outreach efforts, and we can offer resources, but we cannot force them upon someone. So, but we will continue down that path and continue to offer as many resources as possible to support this process. So thank you for considering that.
Thank you.
And I'd like to recognize that Commissioner Fye inquired about that as well at the work session that you and I missed as we were away on a business trip. Commissioner Fye.
Yes, thank you, Chair Harrington. Thank you. I think especially I had a special extra meeting with you, and Marnie, who isn't up here with you, but sitting in the back as well. I really appreciated all the conversations that you've engaged with me. This has been a really a big topic and a big issue to sort of wrap my head around. And I think we had a really robust conversation in our work session around, perhaps one lesson learned is we need to in the future review our policies and protocols for situations like that and figure out where, what are opportunities that we can add additional mental health checks or just additional checkpoints to prevent situations like this in the future. For me, I think one of the conclusions I came to today was either answer yes or no for this issue was reluctant. I was reluctant to say yes to this, to move forward and foresee a potential homeless person within Washington County. I was reluctant to vote no as well because this resident is screaming the system to help him and to provide some services. However, mental health or other problems are in the way that, we can't make headways with it. So with that, while I appreciate all the work you did and everything, I think for me, I will be voting no for this abatement order or action item. Not anything on your end, you did your work. I'm just not sure that within our system, I don't think we used all of our toolbox, all of our tools in our toolbox. with that, I will not be supporting it. But I appreciate all your hard work and look forward to engaging conversations at the upstream level, how we can prevent this in the future as well.
Thank you. I will add my comments. I appreciate all of the work that our staff has been working since longer than 2017 on this problematic community member and the use of his properties. You've been through quite a ringer, even more so for the adjoining neighbors. We don't take these actions lightly, and I know that our team, every member of the Washington County team across departments, has ensured that they are working with honor and integrity in addition to following not only Washington County Code, but also following Oregon laws. This is one of those situations where I am reminded that there is a reason why there are government regulations to ensure that as each one of us as individuals lives as part of a community, that we are following through on our individual responsibility to be a good member of our community, to be good neighbors. I have received more than enough information that lets me know that we as a county government and the adjoining property owners have made accommodations for this individual. But now he has to take responsibility for the actions that he has supported on his property in association with others, dealing with cars, but more grossly, the garbage that is being hauled repeatedly to this property. It is not a certified lined landfill to receive such property, garbage property, that is, trash. So I very much applaud the work of our team. I appreciate the care that you continue to take, and I enthusiastically vote yes for this item. So at this juncture, I would like to ask my colleagues if we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution and order authorizing the county to cause abatement of public health nuisance conditions at 18171 Northwest Sellers Road.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of supporting this motion, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? Aye. Thank you. The motion carries 4-1.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Keep up the good work. And I'd like to thank the adjoining property owners for their patience and their continued work with us in this matter. Next, we move on to our third and final action item of the day. We have a proposal before us to support the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy, also known as CPACE program. So we have an ordinance before us. So first we need to have a reading of ordinance number 891. It's not a land use ordinance, so we don't have to go through the read by title only, or do we, Mr. Carr?
We do, Chair Harrington.
Okay, so
Move we read by title only.
thank you, Commissioner Rogers. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of reading this ordinance by title only, please raise your hand or say aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Take it away, Mr. Carr.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. Ordinance 891, an ordinance adopting Chapter 3.27 of the Washington County Code, establishing the Washington County Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, or CPACE program.
Do we have a staff report today? Do we have a staff report?
Is Matt Craigie online?
He is.
Can you please promote him? Thank you.
Chair Harrington, may I respond to your questions from the work session this morning?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You asked about the commission expressed their intent that there be an assessment after 2 years and then a sunset of this after 3 years, as I think was the discussion this morning. So staff's thought in drafting this ordinance was that they would do the assessment and then the commission could repeal the ordinance if you so chose after the assessment. If the commission would prefer to have the assessment in the ordinance with a sunset date, I would recommend that we withdraw the ordinance and do first reading in 2 weeks on October 18th. That would put back the effective date for a period of 2 weeks, which might affect one developer.
To be clearer, what we wanted was an assessment after 2 years of performance, hence the 3 years. And given that none of that was reflected in this packet of information, I know I would appreciate having this pulled and having our direction accommodated. What are the wishes of the board?
I'm not sure I'm clear on what is being asked.
Sure, I'll explain as to why.
Okay.
Commissioner Rogers and I had a joint briefing with staff at one point on this program, and we had a work session as well. And we are going through a lot of analysis as an organization about what it means for us to have new programs, as well as the impact to our budget. So we were simply asking that we put provisions in place to make sure that as we add new programs, that we're just not adding more and more and more without having some due diligence. It's an excellent program. I very much support our moving forward, but I would like to see us institute some processes to revisit how things are going versus it just being assumed. We've already seen, for example, in the bilingual pay policy, that there is too much of assuming revisiting. All over, for example, our personnel code, we've adopted policies that say it will be revisited in 3 years, and across the board, things haven't been revisited. So I would just like to suggest that the board start instituting some formal processes that are replicable to ask the simple question, how has this been working? Without assuming blindly yes, and continuing to have an escalating budget over and over and over again. And this is something that I hear you, Commissioner Willie and Commissioner Rogers, asking about time and time again when we're talking about the county's budget. So this is an example of a new policy program that I totally support and want us to have put in place. And I'm just asking that we provide direction to our county administrator to make sure that we're given evidence that our direction is followed. Don't mean to be so stern about it, but I thought we'd already been over this ground.
My quick comment is that that's more than reasonable.
Well, I don't disagree with that, if I could. I'm sorry, Roy, I shouldn't have interrupted you.
No, it's okay.
I think I don't have a problem with the reasonableness. I have a problem with that we have a development that is on a timeline and has already indicated that this timeline is challenging for them because it's 30 days after the second public hearing and the approval. So we're talking about mid-November already. And I think I'd kind of like Matt to address that if he would, because he's had the communication directly with the developer. But again, it's like we are implementing a new policy that's going to impede something that I think the developers were anticipating that we could at least get through this. So we could do them both together. I'm just not in favor of delaying this decision until that happens. So Matt, if you could respond to what a delay might do to this project, or if you have any knowledge as to that. And I'm also hearing that from the chair and Roy that a cost analysis, and I completely agree with that. I mean, Roy and I constantly ask that question. So is there a cost implication to the county from this? Yes. But we can assess an administrative fee. Go ahead, Matt.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Willie, and good morning, your board. Sorry that I can't be there with you today. To answer your question, Commissioner Willie, there is one project in Tigard that is working on an aggressive timeline, and it is a project that which the city of Tigard has is looking to put in some funds. And this timeline would be is already challenging for that project. We're hopeful that there are more projects that take advantage of CPACE as well in the future. As for the options for the pilot, we are working under the assumption that this would be a pilot program, as Chair Harrington has talked about. I turn it to County Council Tom Carr to outline some of those options around putting that into the ordinance or having it in the program development.
I wasn't aware this was a pilot. Did we talk about this in the work session, or was this done in a briefing?
So I think we'll turn the mic over to our county administrator and county council.
Thank you for that question. This was presented to the board in work session, and if I recall correctly, I was not in the briefing, so I can't speak to Chair Harrington and Commissioner Rogers' conversation. However, Commissioner Rogers did raise in that work session the desire for this to be a pilot. Number one, because it would be a new program to the county, impact on staff and how that relates to other services the county delivers, and then also wanting to see the outcomes. So what are the outcomes delivered from this program to determine should the county be supporting this moving forward, given the vast suite of services we provide. And County Council Carr can comment on the ordinance and potential steps.
So Chair Harrington, I had another thought, and that's that you could introduce this on first reading and pass it in 2 weeks, and then we could immediately bring back another ordinance amending it to insert the language that you seek to make it a pilot program, have an assessment, and have a sunset. And that way we'll not, I mean, obviously we're going to do it before the 2 years, we'll do it right away, and then you'll have what you need, and then the developer can go forward under the program as it's adopted.
I appreciate hearing that there's an option. Go ahead.
Yeah, so question alongside that, Tom. We know that there is a project in Forest Grove that is looking at utilizing this program as well. So would this pilot program and the amended ordinance that you're referring to, would that impede this company from being able to continue to anticipate they can use this program?
No, what I'm thinking of is a second ordinance that only amends this ordinance to add the sunset date and the requirement of an assessment.
I'm okay with that. Okay.
So the provisions of the ordinance, you know, the criteria and the working of the department here at Washington County to do the record keeping remains the same. It's really the institutionalizing that, especially when we have new programs, we want to make sure that we are assessing the value, that we're on track, and keep going. That's all.
And I certainly appreciate that, because as you and Roy have both said, oversight, certainly anticipating costs of programs is an essential and critical thing that we need to be prioritizing. I do see the budget impacts say require less than 1/4 FTE. Matt, we do have the ability to put a permit fee, I don't know what else you'd call it, on this program as well. Is there parameters around that? How's that work?
That is correct, Commissioner Willie. There is the ability for the county to collect a fee for the administrative work conducted as part of the application process.
All right, thank you. And that's also in the ordinance, I'm assuming. So yes, okay. All right, I'm good with that. Thank you, Matt.
I'd just like to also thank our general counsel for giving us an option here. And are we ready for a motion at this point?
I just want to add that for the first read today, we have received at least one letter of support from the National Association of Industrial and Office Parks, also known as NAIOP, their Oregon chapter, and as Commissioner Rogers mentioned, prior to our having the second read and adoption, we're expecting at least another letter of support from another organization that works closely with the commercial property owners throughout Washington County. So we have a first read, and now we need a motion to move forward with our second read and adoption 2 weeks from today, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously 5-0, and we look forward to our second read and passage in our coming meeting. Thank you. Next is our second public comment period of the day. This is an opportunity for members of our community to speak with us for up to 5 minutes. Clerk Moss.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. We had no one in the room that signed up to testify at this time. Would any members of our online public wish to address the board for up to 5 minutes on any county-related topic? I'll give you just a moment to utilize raise hand function. Not seeing any hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, we have board announcements, and I'll kick it off with a requisite announcement of future meetings. We have a roundtable this Thursday, October 6th, that starts at 9 a.m. Tuesday, October 11th is work session only, which answers my question about the meeting, the board meeting 2 weeks from now, Tuesday, October 18th. We have a work session at 9 and a board meeting at 10. And then the last Tuesday of the month, October 25th, we have an afternoon work session at 2 p.m. and a board meeting that evening. And then we're into the month of November. If you're interested in all those dates, please check out the very last page of our work session packet, which our board clerk makes sure that we have in the packet every single time. Thank you, Clerk Moss. Are there any other board announcements for today? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn today's meeting for Tuesday, October 4th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Thank you. We will reconvene our work session at 1 p.m. Bye-bye.